Welcome, friends. Let us together rebuild this world so that we may live, laugh, and lore.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Not listening. I'm not listening.
Oh, that took.
Program loaded and ready.
Make it so.
Welcome to the Live, Laugh, Lore podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Tony.
And I'm Mark.
And man, we have an absolute of a doozy episode today.
Yes, we do.
One I'm very excited for. Mark, I hope you're excited.
I am excited too.
Man, I took Mark down the rabbit hole of Star Trek.
Yes, it's not a rabbit hole that I've ever been down before. To be fair, I have seen the movies with Chris Pine. But that is my only Star Trek knowledge.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of movies and episodes and games and all this stuff I've been very part of. Mark, not so much, but I kind of hit that stride in high school. So when growing up, we were Star Wars, and there's much more games, action figures, and I feel like that's where we really resonated. But now it's kind of fun where this is kind of my go at, taking Mark down the rabbit hole, and I'm very excited to see where Mark takes me down. So in future episodes. But let's focus on the here and now, be where our feet are. Mark, Star Trek. I had to do so much prep for this specific episode, and I didn't think I would have to because, by the way, dear listeners, I have watched all Star Treks, every single series, every single movie.
Even the new animated ones?
Okay, let me back up. The animated series, the animated...
I poked something there.
Oh, you mean animated as in Lower Decks. Love Lower Decks. It's great. I'm talking about the animated series. It's like the original series was animated. But the whole point is I've seen that like once, but I was about to make the point of this is the TV show and the old movies. I've seen all of those multiple times through. But my point is I thought I'd be ready. I thought I'd just literally walk in, have my notes, and just talk to you about it. Not the case at all. Because I had to do but the hard decision of what do I show someone who's never watched Star Trek and give them the big three? Like the 3 episodes that will encompass all of what Star Trek is. The thousands of hours, what does that stand for? And so paring it down, came up with 3 episodes. And Mark, this week, watched those 3 episodes.
Yes, I did.
And so now we're going to kind of talk about it. I wanted to go across the series because honestly, I could probably give you top 5 of every single series. So just doing a top 3 across all of them was a little tough. But we did the original series, Trouble with Tribbles. That one is just kind of really setting the stage of what Star Trek is. And I kind of wanted to get a good center there. The next episode is The Inner Light. It's from The Next Generation. And that one is just honestly a cult classic following. It's like praised to be one of the best and most watched Star Trek episodes. So I thought, hey, you can't leave that out either. And then the third one is In the Pale Moonlight. That's kind of my favorite. Maybe not all Star Trek or Trekkers' favorite, but at least for me, this is like the top one, and that's from Deep Space Nine. So, Mark, let's just go from the top. So, Trouble with Tribbles.
Okay, so should I do a little recap first, or should I just do initial...
Either one. What do you think? If you want to do the initial thoughts, then recap, but wherever you feel.
Okay, so like I said, I've only seen the movies. I've never seen any of the TV shows. To be fair, I've seen The Orville with Seth MacFarlane, which is kind of an homage to Star Trek, and I can see all the similarities to it now.
Yeah, he's a huge Star Trek fan. He was in Star Trek. He's in Enterprise. He's one of the crewmates in one of the episodes.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, just a quick thing.
So, yeah, the first one was from the original series, like Tony was saying, The Trouble with Tribbles. And
Season 2.
So basically just a quick summary of that. Captain Kirk and Spock are on the USS Enterprise, and they are summoned to an emergency distress call.
Mm-hmm.
They need to transport this essentially it's special wheat, and Captain Kirk keeps calling it wheat, and they get really offended because it's something fancy.
Quadro Trita Kaylee. By the way, I did not know that. I looked it up before. So
fair enough.
If people are thinking back there going, oh my gosh, Tony knows his stuff. I do, but I'm not that impressive.
So Captain Kirk's not sold on it. He thinks it's just wheat.
Yeah.
But apparently it's really important to this mission, and Starfleet Command also finds it super important. So they need like guards there because is it the Klingons in the original series? That are trying to. It's funny because later on the Klingons are their allies. I learned that in the future episodes.
Oh yeah. So that's one of the context things. And how did you like how different the Klingons look?
Very different.
Yeah, not a whole lot of budget in the original series for a different because they're like you're a different alien race. It's like their beards are cut weird.
Yes,
like
exactly.
that's all it is. Yeah.
So it's pretty funny to see the differences, but that's also 25 years difference in Hollywood advancement,
100%.
So anyway, he reluctantly agrees, and the owner of the wheat is kind of a jerk to Kirk, so he's really not too enthused about helping him out.
Yep.
But he does it anyway. Meanwhile, on the ship, actually at the space station, Uhura, is that how you say her name?
Mm-hmm. Lieutenant.
She is at the spaceport, at the bar, essentially, I think, the cantina. And there's a salesman, and he cons the guy into buying this Tribble, which is basically just a little puffball.
That was the, oh my gosh, there's aliens in this episode. It was literally fabric that had, this fur on it, and they put some stuffing in it, and they just closed it up. It's, they're, little odd-shaped, sometimes they're little spheres, other times they're a little bit longer. But
oblong.
That's the Tribble. That's the alien that they're talking about.
Yeah. So Kirk's dealing with these guys. Uhura's got a Tribble. Come to find out, this Tribble reproduces like nobody's business. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, the whole ship's kind of infested with it.
Yep.
And so they're dealing with that. Dr. McCoy's trying to figure out how these things work, all this stuff. Can't figure it out. But essentially, he just sees that
they're born pregnant, Jim. That's literally. They're born pregnant. I can't figure it out.
They just do that. Anyway, at the end of the episode, they're trying to do the wheat. They think there is a Klingon spy somewhere in the ranks. And they actually think it's the salesman who sold them the Tribbles at first.
Yep.
Turns out it's not. And the reason they figure it out is because the Tribbles had gotten into the wheat stash.
Yep.
And they check on it, and it's just a bunch of dead Tribbles.
Yep, exactly.
And then at the end, they figure out it's actually the owner of the Quadritricale.
Yeah, Quadritricale.
Basically, his right-hand man is the Klingon spy.
Yep. And so the only quick thing I would just add to that is it's funny because they thought there was a Klingon spy because the Tribbles were wreaking such havoc. They were going like, oh my gosh, this is a plant. That's why they went to the salesman, and he was going, what the heck? You sold us these creatures that were, oh, by the way, it's against the Federation to sell creatures like that because Tribbles especially have a permanent ban. Most actually areas ban Tribbles for that exact reason because they produce so much.
Yeah.
Because they come from a world where it's just mainly predators and they're the food source, but there's such an instability in that food chain where they have to produce that much just to keep the predators fed, and it's like this huge cycle. So it's just so funny to see it because, Mark, just FYI, Tribbles are a classic cornerstone on Star Trek. There's multiple episodes and references, like Enterprise, the Doctor, he's more of a, not like holistic, but he's looking at this going, we're using all this technology and stuff to solve modern medicine, but these animals and bio creatures have ways of also healing properties that sometimes are even less invasive. So he uses leeches and all this other stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it's kind of like frontier medicine, and that's why they kind of frame the stock that way. But the reason why I'm getting to it is all these animals. So on Enterprise, they have Tribbles to feed the animals because it's a sustainable food source. It's like a huge cap to them. So and then also in Deep Space Nine, they recreate that whole episode in their episode. So actually a few episodes before the one in the Pale Moonlight is Trouble with Tribbles. And you can literally rewatch it and they do a full thing. So that's why I'm saying I wanted to show you this one.
It's a cool,
it's a classic. Yeah. People reference it a lot.
Yeah.
If you see a Tribble out, you'll be like, oh, Star Trek, If you ever see a puffball, someone's, it's normally Tribble. But last thing kind of go on that. So not only was it a double bluff for that guy, but also the Tribbles ate the wheat and they're like, whoa, we thought the problem was the Tribbles. But the Tribbles actually uncovered the problem,
that it was
which
poison
was in
wheat.
the wheat.
Yeah.
And you would have never known because they have such high metabolisms because they have to reproduce that their bodies was able to metabolize the poison quick enough because it was supposed to be a delayed poison that was supposed to take days and days to react.
Right.
But in reality, it only took a day.
Yeah.
Because
they were going to deliver this wheat to this planet and it was going to ruin the whole operation.
Because it was going to poison that. And then the Klingons don't want it because there's a lot more politics there. And we don't need to go into it. But yeah, that's kind of the episode. So kind of thoughts, opinions,
30 seconds in.
Yep.
Was, first of all, rip Leonard Nimoy. Because I see Spock.
Yeah.
And just rip Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, he's the man.
Legend. I saw him on Big Bang Theory. I never watched him on Star Trek TV shows, but I've always liked Leonard Nimoy. Anyway.
Beautiful voice.
Yes.
He was on Bruno Mars's Today I Don't Feel Like Doing Anything. Yeah, he does the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So he's
great.
He's up there.
But overall, the episode is...
Never thought I'd sing on the podcast.
I know, right?
All right, here we are.
But it's overall more whimsical. Not kind of what I thought Star Trek was going to be about. And it's very different than the next 2 episodes we're going to discuss.
Very different. Very different. But I wanted to go to show you because it's not like the original series doesn't tackle those problems, but they were tackling problems of the time that was much more higher press than kind of talking about. Not saying that they couldn't deal with the social issues at the time. They were kind of dealing with like the overall like studios saying, oh my God, they did the first interracial kiss. That's insane to think about. We weren't born yet, but to think that within a relative lifetime between our parents, like this was a big deal. Like, that's so wild to think about.
Was that with Spock or with Kirk?
It was Kirk and Uhura.
Okay. And then,
but Uhura and Spock, it was this whole situation. We don't need to get too much into detail, triangle. But no, not even. Yeah, it was just like there's a situation that came up. They had to do a little quick peck, and that was it.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But no, it was always Uhura and Spock. And then in the new movies, they showed it up a lot more. Kind of circling back on the whole whimsy. So it's like it was really kind of hard to tackle those kind of problems because they're already kind of dealing with a lot of problems behind the scenes. But also, a lot of the problems, they kind of needed to be, I don't know, it needs to be very episodic. And I think that they were not only doing the final frontier of space, but they're doing the final frontier of trying to figure out how to condense an episode in 50 minutes and build up meaningful characters, have it one-off scenarios, and then be able to go the next week. Because another thing we don't appreciate, we're watching this on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
At any point, I can go up there and watch whatever episode I want.
Then jump and watch them
whatever.
all. Yep.
That was not the case. I mean, I'm not showing age here, but I'm just saying it's just wild to think about that we used to, in our lifetimes, had to grow up, watch an episode, and if you missed it, you missed it. And it was wild to think about because that was a really big deal. And I'll talk about it a little bit more in Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine is now considered a really great series, but at the time it was getting slashed hard because of reasons. And we'll get into that one quick second when we get in the episode. But I just wanted to tell you that's why I think they're still trying to figure out that complex algorithm or that complex scenario, saying we need to do something episodic that's going to be meaningful in 50 minutes.
Yeah.
We also need to flesh out these characters. We need to flesh out this area. We need to flesh out this environment. And they're also exploring. So that means there has to be a new environment every single time. So it's, so I think they were trying to balance it out.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, I just want to bring up Kirk. Oh my gosh. That Shakespearean huge acting. I mean, there's
over the top.
There's never a moment. Yeah.
But I thought the stereotype was that he had a lot more, like his performance was more choppy. Like there was a lot more pauses in his, and I didn't really notice that in this episode.
It might just be this specific episode.
I've seen like over dramatizations of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's exaggerated.
But Sulu, turn on the engine.
Exactly. Yeah. But I didn't really see that in this episode, to be honest with you. But
I think people are just over dramatizing it, and they're doing like, it's actually funny. I saw it online, but drama schools, that's like like when they try to do improv or they're trying to warm up before a scene, they, say these different things. Like in Anchorman, how now brown cow, like you're trying to warm up stuff. They say like Shatner, and what you're supposed to do, just over exaggerate everything. So I think it kind of deviated from what it really was. He does pause a little bit, but not as bad as people put it out to be. So it's funny that you kind of had that impression.
Yeah.
So were you expecting him? He's like, but the Tribbles.
Yeah. I thought he was like, get off my bridge. No.
Kind
of robotic a little bit. But but it's not. He's very fluid. He actually has a really good rapport, I guess, with Leonard Nimoy. I mean, him and Spock go back and forth really easy.
Yeah.
Now, and I think it was just the nature of the next 2 episodes. They didn't really interact with their first mate very much, but I really noticed it in the first episode how great they interacted with each other.
Yeah, and it's so funny with every single one of these points. I'm holding back the urge of just going, well, actually, there is about 15 episodes that I can tell you right now that it's going to tell you exactly the way Riker and Picard interact, or the way Kira and Sisko. And so there's so much more. That's why I'm hoping that, honestly, dear listeners, I'm hoping this drags more people in to watch Star Trek because it's such a cool thing. But the last thing I kind of want to bring up and kind of have your opinion on, because you've kind of seen it across the board, the technology of the time was so innovative because it's like the communicators, like classic clamshell and like all this other stuff that was so cool. But it's so funny because you see all this, like there's so many buttons everywhere in the original series, everywhere.
Literally in every scene. I think that was just the persona of the future, I guess, right?
Yeah, but at that time they couldn't fathom a touchscreen.
That's true.
It's just, I mean, not saying they couldn't fathom it, but you know what I mean? It was just more common. Like they
more
just
buttons, more abilities.
Yeah, and also it kind of gives them more time for acting, and there's pauses and all this other stuff. And I think the other point is like the technology gets slimmer, sleeker, and whatever. But the other joke is like the girls' uniforms get better too, because in the original series and like those waitresses, they're at a bar and stuff, but it's like, oh my gosh, they were showing a lot of skin. I kind of forgot about that, but I was watching and I was like, oh my, this was in like the 60s. You know what I mean? This was
back
wild.
then, Tony. I mean, there's always been nerds, but I feel like back in the rough and tumble 60s, they needed a little bit of female appeal to get guys to watch the show.
Yeah.
There's more, and then it got more, culturally appropriate as the time went on, right?
Yeah.
But
and I'm not saying that there's never a female appeal that happens in these other episodes, but it was just shocking because every female was dressed in that specific way.
Right.
Like, and it's funny, gosh, I almost, if you want, I'll give you extra homework, Mark. Watch Trials and Tribulations. That's a D69 episode.
Okay.
If you watch that one, Dax makes a joke of that. She goes, oh my gosh, these uniforms, because all the girls wear the same jump as everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's just, she's kind of making like a slight at that, being like, what the heck? Like, how did anyone do their work in this thing?
Yeah.
So it was really good. And it's really nice to see that scene and them kind of, but just saying like, wow, this is a big difference, just even in the uniforms and the technology. So it's just really nice to see that basis and seeing that basis then evolve into these next two episodes. So Mark, do you have any other questions?
No, I think that wraps up for the first episode. Very whimsical, very, very good intro, I think, to Star Trek.
Yep. It's a little light. It's
light. It's
airy,
fun.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I really didn't know what I was getting into. Then I did think after I watched this episode what I was going to be in for, and then I was completely wrong when I turned on the inner light.
Okay, Mark, I'm not gonna lie. I hit you with a right hook here.
Oh, big time.
Hard right
big
hook.
Big time.
Because there's a lot more whimsy and other stuff that gets kind of built up. But since I can only give you 3 episodes, I had to hit you with a high, hard one.
No, and I'm glad you did.
This one is it.
I'm glad you did.
So, Mark, take her away. What?
Jean-Luc Picard. See, we're in
Enterprise D. So, sorry, first one in the original series is NCC 1701. And then you could argue that they're at A or that time. But the point is NCC 1701. Next Generation is about the Enterprise NCC 1701D.
So it's a different timeline.
So different, no, same timeline, different. It's the Next Generation. So it's like Series A ship, and then X amount of years later, they have the D ship.
Gotcha.
And so there's Star Trek lore that I'd love to get into. Maybe one day we will get into is the ships, because there's interesting step-ins that between the B, the C, and then the D. So there's 2 more ships between the original series crew and the Next Generation.
Yes.
There's stuff that they talk about of comics and books that reach on that, but for all intents and purposes, this is the D. Same Enterprise, just years later now.
Yes, okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so Next Generation's the Inner Light. Jean-Luc Picard's captain now.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts off, I went in, it was right hook, right? So I didn't know what was happening at first. It took a little while for me to figure out exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Essentially, they see a probe, and they have no idea what it is. Lieutenant Data?
Lieutenant Commander.
Lieutenant Commander.
Commander, if you want to be more polite.
Which is super hilarious, because if there's any Dana Carvey fans out there, he has a movie called The Master of Disguise from the early 2000s. Lieutenant Commander Data plays the bad guy in that movie, and I could not stop laughing.
Brett Spiner. Yeah.
It was awesome, because I've never seen that guy in any other movie, so it was awesome.
Oh, really? I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, he is. It's probably like seeing Alan Rickman in, oh, my gosh, the Christmas movie. Well, people call it a Christmas movie.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
really
Die
not.
Hard.
Hard.
He's also in Pride and Prejudice. I watched that with my mom like 3 years ago.
Really?
And he's...
Oh, okay, wow. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's weird seeing characters out of context like that. And it's funny, you don't even see him that much. I mean, you see him talk a little bit, but yeah, Lieutenant Commander Data.
Yep, anyway, so all of a sudden he says there's a beam coming in. They don't know what it is, and that Jean-Luc Picard's like, well, we got to stop. Then it hits him, and he faints. He passes out.
Yep.
He wakes up in this unknown civilization with this lady who seems to be his wife, but he has no idea what's going on. But she seems to know him.
Yep.
And he fully remembers his life as Jean-Luc Picard. But they think he's this man named Cayman, who he has no idea what's going on.
Cayman, you've had a fever for 4 days.
Correct. 3 days.
3? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there you go. So he's got to figure out what's going on. He actually is like, am I a prisoner here? USS Enterprise.
The classic.
Yeah, right, yeah. They all seem very worried about him, because they're like, he's going crazy. But he knows he's not going crazy. So he wanders around, finds that Cayman's best friend, right? And he's like on the small council. Anyway, it goes back to the crew. And it literally, Captain Picard had just fainted. They're trying to figure out what's going on. The doctor's called in. It's like a minute scene, maybe. Goes back to Jean-Luc Picard. 5 years have passed.
Yes.
And he is kind of accepting that this is his life now, but also kind of holding on. He builds a telescope trying to, like, find the USS Enterprise.
He's trying to map where he is.
Yeah.
Because he can't understand. He's like, so the planet's called Catan, which if you ever play Settlers of Catan, whenever I play that game, that's all I think about.
Exactly.
I just want to play the flute and be like, dude, do you know my boy Patrick Stewart was on this planet? You know what I mean? That's all I think about it.
They don't know about the flute yet, but we're going to get it.
Sorry. Yeah.
So he's tracking it, and then in this little, back to the scene of him, he kind of accepts who he is. He fights for the town. The governor, the regional governor of the area comes, and the planet is on a major drought, and they need to get more water. And he has the idea of making a atmospheric condenser to get more water, which the guy kind of shuts down. Captain Picard was really fighting for it, and his best friend's like, you really seemed like your old self, and it was really great to see you that way.
Yeah.
And then he kind of accepts. Yeah.
And he also, sorry for you at this point, but there's also that beautiful scene with his wife where she was like, hey, I know I was waiting for you, and I'm still okay with waiting for you. But you see him finally accept, like, okay, maybe I am going crazy. Maybe all this stuff, even though it feels so real to me, I need to live my life because I only got one life. Let's start a family.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, Jean-Luc Picard, historically at this point, never a family man, so invested in his career.
Yep.
It gets to a point where he's now accepting a family and accepting the world, and you're like,
whoa, you just see this man completely change. And so the flute thing in the first segment, she says your true passion is playing the flute, but you're not really good at it. So then once he accepts his life, he dedicates himself to learning that flute. So now we go back to the Enterprise. They're trying to figure out. Data pretty much said, I know how to shut it down. We can shut the stream down if you want us to.
Yeah, we do the sun blocker on our shield. It resonates.
The doctor didn't want to do that because they didn't know what was happening. But this was like a couple minutes in, and the first mate was like, okay, we need to do something because
we have no idea what this is doing to him.
So Lieutenant Commander Data shuts down the stream, and Picard's vitals go whack. And so then they freak out, reinstated it, and he settles back in. So like different progress, and he goes, well, there's some residue on the probe, and we can figure out where this thing's from.
Yep.
Go back to Picard.
Because all why this probe is not circling a planet. You know what I mean? It's traveled, right?
Yeah. Which I forgot to mention.
It's like Voyager, like 1 for
in the first segment, it freaks him out because his wife's got a necklace of the probe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, back, he's accepted. Now he's got 2 kids, and they are, in the process of growing. His daughter's like 4, and he's got a baby now.
Son and
living the life thing. Go back to the ship. They realize it's from this. We find it from this planet that the star went supernova 1,000 years ago. There's nobody where this probe is from. The people are dead,
and it's completely lost on them. Now they can't do anything.
Yeah, and so they're like, well, what in the world? Go back to Picard. Kids are grown up. He's older now. Him and his daughter figure out that the world is dying, and they don't know what to do. The regional governor doesn't want to do anything, so he confronts him, and the regional governor is like, don't tell anybody, but we already know this.
We've known this for years.
Yep.
Your findings are just reaffirming us.
Yes.
Because he's just like, why don't we build this space program?
Correct.
Why don't we get people out of here? And they're like, we just don't have the time, resources, or efforts. Like, even to select a few people, how do you reach that morally? Which, thank God, finally there's a movie or an episode that talks about this. Because it's not just like, let's just send our 10 best and brightest people. Like, how do you decide that? And they're just going, instead of the morality of it, let's just sleep where we are, right? Let's just make the bed, get in there, and it's like the Titanic, like the old couple. They're like, dude, we're not getting on this boat. Right. Let's just do this. And it's like, oh my, what a hard thing to conceive of, where our life's all about preservation, and yet here they are going, we've done it. Yeah. We've done it.
Yeah. So the regional governor is basically like, there's a plan in place, but I can't tell you anything more about it, right?
Yep.
Essentially, so Picard he is Cayman now. He is fully invested in the community. At the same time, his wife's dying. They're old now. And he goes back. He loses his wife. He fell in love with this lady. Not only has he accepted wanting kids, he's had kids, fell in love, lost his wife. So he's kind of doing the actual life thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Goes back to Enterprise, still doing the same thing. They don't really know much. Go back to Picard. Now he's super old. He's got grandkids, and he's not doing well health-wise himself. his daughter's like, Dad, come on, they're launching
gotta
a
watch
rocket.
it.
Yeah, you have to watch it. And he goes, I'm not going anywhere. Look, Dad, you have to watch it. And he's all upset because he knows this world's dying, and he was just playing with his grandson. His grandson's not going to be able to grow up. He knows because the world's going to end in like a year or so.
He was given a terrible truth that he just now has to like live with.
Yes.
Oh.
Anyway, and he goes, oh, I'm excited to see this. All of a sudden, his best friend who's been dead for years is next to him, and he goes, you know what this rocket is? Because he's like, no one told me about the rocket. And he's like, we didn't have to because you've already seen it. And his best friend who's been dead, he's like, what? And then he turns in his wife who's dead, is like, yeah.
A young wife.
Yeah, a young wife came, and you know this. Turns out he's watching the probe being launched.
His probe that launched him in the original state.
Yes. And so he's lived this full life, and he dies, and he wakes back up in Jean-Luc Picard's young body, having lived a full life. And the probe ends, and then on the Enterprise, they take it in. Yeah, they just dissect it, and they find something in it. What is it? It's the flute.
Yes.
It's the flute.
Isn't that the biggest?
And he holds it, and Jean-Luc Picard's never been able to play the flute before, but he plays that flute.
Yep, because he goes into his ready room.
Yep.
Or his ready room.
His quarters, yeah.
Yeah, and he just starts playing it, and it's just like, what a mind. And so just also, the reason why they sent the probe is they believed that, yes, our planet is going to die, but the only way to truly live on is to have another individual in the world to experience what we have felt and what we have done.
Remember us and tell our stories.
Exactly. And what a wild, like, memorial and, quite frankly, almost like barbaric, because now he has to, like, resolve this huge burden of, oh my God, I just lived a full life. And because when he also regains, it's not like he, like, wakes up and he's like, oh, Data, my boy, is like, what's going on? He's
in his mind, he's been away for 70 years.
Yeah. And so he's going to resolve, he's like, Picard? My name, Picard.
Jean-Luc Picard, yeah.
And he doesn't want to because also now he's the captain. So he can't go like,
and he realizes that,
I don't have to do anything to you. He like poises himself. He goes, yes. And like, that's when he walks away and it's, what a right hook.
A mind bender for sure. I don't know how I would deal with that, first of all.
Not well. No, I'm telling you, I wouldn't deal with it well.
And it's a whole life that you truly believed happened, but really never happened.
Yeah.
Because they tell him he's been out cold for 20 minutes, yet he's lived 70 years.
So he's experienced pain, loss, gain, everything.
And he just, holy crud.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's insane.
And the fact that, like...
So it was a heavy episode, but a real good episode.
Real heavy. And also, just to give you a little bit of background, so at this point, you've already seen a lot of Picard. You've learned a lot about him. So just as an FYI, he is this huge career-centered... The Enterprise is the flagship. So you have the Federation, which is an aggregation of planets, which includes Vulcans, humans, all of these different people, right? Alien races, that is. And so they all are aggregating this group, and they have the Federation, which is kind of their explorers. It's not military, they're explorers. It's very defined. And those explorers have these ships, and there's different classes, but they have a Galaxy-class cruiser, and that's the flagship. That's like the ship. So when they say the best and the brightest, this is like the best and the brightest of the best and the brightest of the best and the brightest. Like, it means a lot. So he's just been a career man all of his life to get to this point. So the fact that he was able to, after years, finally go, okay, I'm not trapped. I must be going crazy. I'm now going to give my life up. When I say give my life up, give up my previous life to now continue on to this one. Yes, I will have kids with you, and we will raise this family together, and we'll have grandkids. And seeing that character arc just change in this one is so wild. And then the episode after is even more wild because now he has to, like, go with it.
Okay, that was my next question. So they do, it's not like the next episode they pretend like this never happens.
No, but so Star Trek does this really cool thing where decisions matter. And they will do a really good job of focusing on that during the episode. But the decisions do matter. Like, they'll carry over, right?
Yeah.
Something with Worf at one episode will happen later. Now, granted, it's not so in your face. It's not like the next episode we'll see Picard, like, bawling his eyes out. But there's still turmoil around. And there's later times where they bring it up where he's in with Troy. So Deanna Troi is the ship's counselor. Mm-hmm. So the one person who wasn't in uniform, that's Deanna Troi on the bridge.
Yeah.
So she's a Beta Z. So they are not telepathic, but when you're emotional, Empath. They're empaths. And so there's multiple times where she's like, do you want to talk about stuff? Do you want to see? And she, starts bringing up stuff like this. So it's not like it's completely off the table, but there's not a lot of episodes that go, wait, John Luke, the flute, right? He doesn't really whip out that flute often, so. But it does stay in his quarters. You can always see it.
Yeah.
So it's not like they just it's a prop, they do the one, see you buy. It's
part of his life now. Yeah.
Correct. Dude, that was a high hard one episode.
Definitely.
Is there anything else you wanted to kind of talk about that? Because you didn't really see the technology or anything, so
no, it was
kind
just
of upset that you
going
didn't see
through
that.
life kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could handle it well, so I'm interested to see what the listeners think, if they could handle it any differently.
Yeah.
And I know...
And you don't know you're going to release out of it, too. Like, you have to think about you can't be like, oh, that'd be kind of sick living 70 years, knowing that I'm going to go right back to this body. Dude, we might be living that 70 years right now, and we don't even know. Wow, talk about a really mind bender.
Right.
But yeah, so you can't stop and think that you know.
Well, and it's going to have repercussions, too. Like, now he's back as the career man, but he's experienced having a wife and kids. Does that make him change his whole life? I know for the series it can't, but...
It does make him more empathetic.
Yeah.
And so I will say, Rick and Morty does a lot of nods to sci-fi, and I think they kind of did this in this one. So do you watch Rick and Morty? Mm-hmm. When they went to Blips and Chits, and they do the whole Roy simulator?
Yeah.
So this is very similar, right? Because they go into the simulator, you know what I mean? He kicks it out. Morty, he gives the thing, and Morty wakes up as a kid, and he lives out his whole life.
Yep.
And then he wakes up, he's like, wait, I'm Morty Smith? And so I thought that there was a little bit of homage to that.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I was hoping it was that. I'm sorry, Mark. I got really excited about showing that one. Did you? Oh, we were asking people if they felt like they could live it. And I think they did a good job because Morty does the same thing. He's like, wait, no. I'm Roy. I'm Rocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I did all this. Like, the carpet company's so explaining his life, even though he had no idea he was in a simulation. So,
right.
Yeah, it was super cool, but I don't know how I would personally deal with it. Probably not well. But I wouldn't know until I'm in the situation.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just so wild to me.
Well, it would take a little while to, A, get back in the swing of things.
Mm-hmm.
B, come to terms with it wasn't real, even though it felt so real.
And then that's why I think this is the philosopher's
or was it real? He could have been transported back in time.
Exactly.
Was Kamen someone else, and he just became Kamen?
Exactly. Is this this is clearly an elaborate program, but you could argue this is why Star Trek is something that you can watch at its surface and go, I appreciate this. It's also something that keeps me up at night. When I'm driving on long drives, I will think about a Star Trek episode and talk about forming a moral compass, but also a philosophical mind where you have to think and go, okay, you say it's not real, but what's experience? I hate to sound like that whoa trippy guy, but seriously, what's experience? Because for all intents and purposes, that was living experience as Picard. As much as we are breathing here and now, that was his life, and he experienced it. So saying it's not based in reality is almost a weird trippy thing.
Yeah.
It's a reality in which time was dilated. He experienced everything exactly as we're experiencing it now. You almost can't reject it, So it gets into this philosophical play world because it's that's real. It wasn't real, but it was real.
Right.
So it gets into such a huge moral conundrum, and I'm hoping we're going to get even more down the moral train with this next episode.
Yes.
So, but sorry, do you have any final remarks before we get to that one?
No. All in all, great episode. Highly recommend it.
So yeah, Mark, next episode.
Yeah, the last one that we're going to discuss tonight, In the Pale Moonlight, Deep Space Nine, not Deep Space 8.
Not Deep Space 8, but Deep Space 9.
Sorry, Jenna. He's going to be singing that the rest of the week.
All day. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. If you guys ever had the chance, look up Deep Space Nine, the theme song with words. I love that guy. But yeah, I listen to it. It's a very cult classic YouTube if you're a Deep Space Nine aficionado.
At least 50% of that man's views on YouTube are Tony.
So. 100%. There was a time where I just put that thing on repeat, and it's as weird as it sounds. I don't know. It's just such a calming guy. It's just a very dedicated fan who wanted to add to the theme songs at this point. I should have mentioned there's no words. The only time there was a theme song with words was Enterprise. You didn't watch an Enterprise episode. With that being said, he was just like, hey, there's our great melodies in this. I'm just going to add words to them. And he adds words based on the characters, and that was his big thing. It's not Deep Space 8, but Deep Space 9.
Right.
So.
But for the original series and for Next Generations, they had the same one. It was just spoken, though. It was Space, the final frontier.
These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. But they changed it up. So
I want to say, followers and listeners, that Tony just did that off the cuff. He wasn't reading anything. He knew that in his heart.
The worst part is much like I can tell you the differences between Star Wars, where like Luke's digitally remastered lightsaber and like the digitally reacted scene. I could tell you the theme or the intro sequence and how it's changed over the years. So, for example, it's a 5-year mission in the original series. In Next Generation, it's ongoing mission. And then also in the new movies, they change it so it's not where no man's gone before, it's where no one's gone before. And there's a couple other subtleties here and there. But yeah, no, I've seen
ingrained.
A lot.
It's ingrained.
I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot. So they have the two similar intros, and then Deep Space Nine has a completely different intro because we're no longer with the Enterprise. This is Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine is a space station. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but let's first go over the episode.
Yes, which I didn't realize till about halfway through. It's a space station, not a ship.
Yes, space station. And you would have never known that. I mean,
because it's Captain Sisko. They still call him Captain. He's still got a bridge. He's still got an office.
Yep.
It's all this stuff.
Yeah, they called it Ops.
Yeah, Ops. Yeah, correct. So, In Pale Moonlight starts off completely different than the other two episodes. It's just him in his quarters, Sisko. You could tell he's unsettled about what he just did, and he's telling the captain's log, really just to get it off his chest, because you can tell his uniform's kind of unzipped. He looks like a distressed man.
He's got a drink with him.
Yeah, correct. And like I said, he's just lost. So he needs to tell somebody, so he's going to tell his captain's log. In Deep Space Nine, the reason I said the comment earlier, the Klingons have joined forces because there's this thing called the Dominion.
Yes. So do you want me to quickly go over this?
Yeah.
Just so I can set the stage for you and all of our listeners. So Deep Space Nine, there's a lot of stuff going on, but at a really high, quick top level. We are in the Alpha Quadrant. We as in Federation, sorry, I'm saying we. But the Federation has established quadrants of space, and they are in the Alpha Quadrant. And so the reason why I bring that up is because in the area where Deep Space Nine is, it's an outpost in the far reaches of space. But the reason why this one's so special is they uncover a wormhole that's stable. So never seen a stable wormhole. And not only is it a stable wormhole, but it's an unstable wormhole that takes you from the Alpha Quadrant to the Gamma Quadrant.
Is that the last quadrant? Is Gamma Quadrant the last quadrant?
So I'll have to look that up. I'm not quite sure if it is the last quadrant, but so the wormhole goes from Alpha Quadrant to Gamma Quadrant. And what's kind of going on there is it unleashes kind of this whole new, not only like exploration, but now it's like a trade hub. They're trying to do more because with even their fastest ships, they couldn't even within a lifetime travel at top speed from the Alpha Quadrant to the Gamma Quadrant and back again at any point. So, as you can tell, this is a huge opportunity. And so a lot of stuff ensues, but the point is that there's the Dominion. Dominion are from the Gamma Quadrant. The Dominion come in, and they are changeling. So these changelings don't trust what they call solids, which are just normal people. Because they're like, hey, they don't trust us, and they've gotten persecuted in the past. So they create this thing called the Dominion, which is this big war machine where they basically conquer all the worlds. And they accept them into the Dominion, and it's their way of saying, we don't trust you as a solid, therefore the only way that we can ensure our safety is to rule you. And they're this crazy alien race, or not crazy, but they have their own motivations, but the alien race has just genetically engineered these weaponized creatures that are addicted to a drug that only the changelings can make. And they have like these war bands, and they also have all this different stuff that kind of builds up into this huge war effort. And the Federation is dealing with this because they're like, no, we want our freedoms. We want to come in peace and talk with you, but you guys don't even trust us for that. So it breaks down this huge war. And it's just a long, massive, bloody war because they have a whole quadrant of resources that are coming in, filtering in, whatever. And that's what Sisko's struggling with right now because he's going, even with our allies, we have the Vulcans, Vulcans are always there, and Klingons, but the whole point is you have the Federation, you have the Klingons, and you have a couple
the Romulans.
you have a couple of big other players, but the Romulans are the next big ones.
Yep.
We need help with the Romulans because we're getting our butts handed to us.
Yep.
And that's the issue. So I wanted to give kind of the pressure because this is getting brought up into a huge war, and I'm kind of putting you right in the middle of it.
Yep.
So sorry for doing that, but this is such
good.
a good episode that I just want to let you know that Dominion is this changeling run war machine. They have just unbelievable resources, and the Federation, as good as they are struggling.
Yes. That's good context.
Oh, so sorry. One more thing. So the war effort's also a really big deal because, the wormhole's right in front of the planet of Cardassia and Bajor. So this is a Bajoran space station, technically. Mm-hmm. So the Bajoran space station with the Federation. So Bajor and Federation are tight, but they're not. Bajor's not technically in the Federation. But the point is that just even more context, the Kardashians, by the way, not Kim Kardashian.
That's what
Kardashians
I thought.
are another planet that comes in, and there's an occupation on Bajor and all this other stuff, but they allow the Dominion and sign with them. So now, not only is it the Gamma Quadrant versus the Alpha Quadrant, but some of the Alpha Quadrants trembling.
Yep.
So the Alpha Quadrant, their key players, the Kardashians are joined with the Dominion, and the Romulans go, you know what, let's just see this play out. I'm going to sign a non-aggression act, meaning we're cool with you, you're cool with us. We're just going to stick just like this and play out your war kind of deal. And sorry.
They're Switzerland.
Exactly. Yeah, they're just trying to remain neutral. So I wanted to bring that in because I forgot that piece, but that's a really important piece.
Yep.
Because that's why the Garrick stuff's going to be more important.
Correct.
Because the Kardashians are paired with the Dominion.
Yes.
So
that's good context.
It was required context. It's long, but required.
But definitely required. So that sets the stage. So they are trembling, like Tony said. So they need more manpower. So they need the Romulans. And he basically says, this is Captain Sisko. He brought the Romulans into the war, but was it right? Did I do it in the right way? He even says, he said, my father always said that the path to hell is paved by good intentions.
Favorite quote. One of my favorite
great
quotes.
Quote.
Oh, this is one of his opening sentences.
Yeah. And so it goes back and forth, but I'll just give you kind of what he did, and this is how he kind of deals with it.
Yeah, because we can go high level. There's a lot in this episode, but let's go high level and then break it down.
Correct. He knows that he needs the Romulans, and the Cardassians are kind of the Dominion's front men, at least in the Alpha.
In the Alpha Quadrant, they're the front men.
And so he wants to know if they're planning anything, because the only way to get the Romulans in is you need proof that the Dominion is going to attack them. So they happen to have Garrick on the ship, who is a turncoat.
Turncoat, yeah.
He's a Cardassian.
Quick backstory. I realize, I'm so sorry, this is actually really important. I hate to interrupt, but the point is that Garrick is a turncoat, but he was part of the Obsidian Order, which is like their intelligence agency for Cardassia. And it got really political, and there was some falling out during the occupation, but he got, what's that called? Not political asylum, but when you get banished, like not excommunicated, but you know what I'm going down. He basically gets thrown out of his own planet. And so that's why he's kind of siding with the Federation more. Yes. Because not only is he a turncoat, but he's also looking at this going, my own people throwing me to the wolves.
Yep.
Now, where can I help out? Mm-hmm. And also, one more quick point. The reason why they get down to this whole data thing is because they're trying to figure out, like, what would cause the Romulans to join this war? And so it's with Dax, and I love this scene because it's with Dax, who's this lifelong friend to Benjamin Sisko.
Who was acting as a Romulan.
And is going back and forth and going, why should I care?
Yeah.
My two biggest enemies, so you're telling me that they're shopping in my backyard to give you a bloody nose? That doesn't convince me.
Yeah.
He goes, I
need proof that they're attacking me.
Yeah, I need a proof that, because his whole point is like, you can't be dumb. Like, Sisko's point is like, you can't be this dumb. Like, they're going to attack, and they're going to kill everybody. And once they're done with that, they're going to then go after you. And they're like, that's speculation. How do you know that? We have a non-aggression act. We've signed. Mm-hmm. We're good to go. There's no reason why we should break this. And that's where the proof comes in the pudding.
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
I tried to bring up that scene
good.
because I love that scene so much.
Because he goes to Garrick for intelligence. And he already knows this is not really
shady.
Approved by the Federation, right? So it's a little shady. Yeah, Garrick's always been a little shady from what I can tell.
Yeah, there's so much on Garrick. But yeah, at the end of the day, because he's an honest tailor. That's his whole thing.
He's a tailor,
He's a tailor. Obsidian Order, me? No, never. So he's just a tailor that left his home planet for no reason.
So he goes and talks to him, and he convinces him to help out. He comes to see Garrick again, and Garrick goes, well, doesn't look like we have anything, because the people I reached out to are dead now.
10 people I reached out to.
2.
Within 24 hours of talking with me, died.
Dead. So he has this plan.
And that hurts Captain Sisko. He's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm the cause of 10 deaths just by talking to this guy.
Just blood's on my hand already.
And he goes, well, we have a plan.
Are you going to fold that soon? I think that's he even says that, yeah.
There's a Romulan senator that they can convince, but they need a data file, essentially.
Yeah, it's basically, you said it, and I know on the top of my head, but basically it's like a data tube.
Yeah, it's got a recording of evidence, right?
Very specific one. They only do it once. It's write only. You can only write to it once.
Yes.
And there's no altering it, and they only do it for official records, and they also only make it for official records.
Correct.
Only.
Anything else is like a crime.
Anything else, huge crime. Huge crime.
So he goes, there is a guy that we can make a fake, basically, of the Kardashians making a plan to do a surprise attack on the Romulans. Just take them out so they can... And it's semi-plausible because they want to help the Dominion take over the sector. And he goes, the only problem is this guy is in a Klingon prison going to be executed tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So Captain Sisko pulls some strings, get this guy on parole. You could also tell this guy's kind of skeevy. Just right. Tells him what's going on. As soon as he said Garrick's here, he shook in his boots. So that should have been foreshadowing number one.
Yeah.
Anyway, this guy goes down to the bar. He's having some drinks, tries to dance with this girl, gets stabbed because she doesn't want to. The bar owner stabs him.
No. He stabs the bar owner because the bar owner tries to stop him. He goes, she doesn't want to dance with you, and he just stabs her.
He stabs the bar owner. So now the bar owner wants to press charges, but Captain Sisko needs this guy, so he goes, what can we do?
Okay, so backstory really quick. Another backstory here. So the bar owner's name is Quark. He is a Ferengi. Whole point of Ferengi, all you need to know, greed's eternal. That's literally what's written on their building. Greed's eternal. Their whole society is a capitalist society where it's all about quick bucks. It's all about acquisitions. They have this rule book. It's they're almost like their equivalent of the Bible. It's called Rules of Acquisition. And the reason why I bring that up is because the Federation is historically this high and mighty. This is our principles. We have the prime directive. We will never do anything outside of our purview. We're here to help every single life. Every single life is sacred. And they're kind of like, that's dumb. The river provides. The weak should just get pushed to the side. The rich, the winners and the rich people should keep pushing forward because those are the real deals of society. So he's, not only is he trying to press charges, but he's just he's just trying to always make a quick buck. And so I think, this is where you get into your stuff.
Yeah, which is good because he goes, oh, now he's all excited because now the captain's
you want to do a bribe.
Yeah. And essentially, he needs new clothes, new money, more money, and then, oh, by the way, I have some cargo that I may not have the right paperwork for.
Yeah.
Those should just appear here,
And this is actually one of my favorite lines. I love this. If anyone has a chance, even if you're not a Star Trek fan, look up the Rules of Acquisition. They are brilliant. I think I can't remember how much there are, but there's just hundreds and hundreds of rules. And it's so funny because they are absolutely so brilliant. And it's one of my favorite one-liners because as Captain Sisko's walking out, Quark goes, oh, by the way, you've completely restored my faith in the 98th rule of acquisition, which is every man has his price.
Yep.
And it's the writers for Deep Space Nine, I get goosebumps just thinking about that because I'm like, they are brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant because that's just the most salt in the wound because Quark has no idea what's going on. It's just him going, hey, I want to free this guy.
Yeah.
He has no context of anything. He has no idea Ben Sisko is going through this moral trouble. But the omniscient writer is going, let's get some dirt in his eyes.
Yes.
Let's tell him to his own face that even the Federation has their price.
And you can tell it on Sisko's face the whole episode. He is not sure of what he's doing.
Not at all. Only time he doesn't seem confident.
Yes. He feels really bad about it. He's committing treason. He's doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Awful things. And we're getting to. So sorry, go to the next point. I just want to mention that because that was beautiful.
I'm glad you did.
Oh, best scene. One of the best scenes.
And so he's done that. He's done bribery. What else is next, right?
What could possibly? Yeah.
So he gets this guy off without any charges being pressed against him. So he goes to work, and he makes this fake data file, data tube, and he's there. It's Captain Sisko, Garrick, and the forger. I forget what his name is.
Yeah.
Anyway, they review it, and it looks really good. And Sisko says, all right, well, I buy it, so write it to the vial. They put it in, it's good. And the forger's like, all right, well, good doing business with you. I will. Oh, by the way, before he agreed to do it, he needed a price. And it's basically this biochemical.
To get the vial. To get the data rod.
To do it, yeah. And his price was you needed this biochemical stuff that could make biochemical weapons or cloning. And it's
a huge
deal.
Yeah, it's a gel that's
he had to take from the medical supplies. And even the doctor on the ship was like, I'm not comfortable with this. And I'm going to be filing an official complaint. And he's just like, I don't care.
Because Benjamin Sisko orders the doctor.
Yeah.
Because the doctor's going, I, in good conscience, cannot... Because the whole point is he's like, I will give this to you if you tell me what you're doing. And since this is such a covert
operation, he can't.
He's like, I'm literally telling you, you don't have the right clearance. I'm not giving this to you. And he's like, no, I'm the medical officer, which I love when they do this in Star Trek because it really goes to show, like, the doctors at the end of the day have the final say, not for anything, but when it comes to medical stuff, no one can outrank them. No admiral, no doctor, no one can come in and tell them that they can't do this.
Yeah.
So basically, he's like, even if you're ordering me to do this, I'm telling you, I do not agree with this. You can take it, but if you do, I'm officially writing you up, and this is going to be a huge mark on your record.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why Sisko, once again, in way too deep, has to do this.
And he does it. So they make it, and now the Forger think he's just going to leave the ship, and then Sisko pins him against the wall, threatens him now, and goes, "You're not leaving until our client accepts this as actual proof." And he's like, I don't know what you're so worried about. It's gonna, I do good work kind of thing. So the Romulan senator comes, reviews it, thinks it's real, and he's like, I need to take a closer look at it. Upon closer look, he's like, this is a fake.
Yeah.
Shatter Sisko.
Fake.
Now he's going to go and tell everyone that Sisko lied to him and committed this crime.
Looks really bad now.
Really bad.
The Federation's...
That coupled with the write-up from the doctor, he's going to lose his career. He's done.
Everything.
He's done. Now he's just this shattered, broken man. All of a sudden, though, he gets a report. The senator's ship explodes, and everyone on the ship dies.
Yeah.
And it looks like Dominion Forces is the one who did it. And
There's a Dominion mine that was in there.
Yes. Sisko knows exactly what's going on. He goes right to Garrick and goes, "What the heck did you just do?" And he goes, "I don't know what you're talking about," essentially. But then they get to talking and he admits, yeah, he does it. Romulus is going to think the Dominion did it, and they're going to be on our side.
This is a perfect plan.
Yeah.
Even though you had to pull this trigger and you think your morality is messed up, I did the one thing that's going to save us.
Yeah.
I knew that they knew it was a fake. I knew this all along. And the second that I blow up their ship, all they're going to see some Romulan ship went to Deep Space Nine, received some data on this rod that is official Kardashian rod. And once that is exploded and they find that, recover that, they'll know something's up. And any imperfections that might have been on that data rod can just get washed away saying...
By the explosion.
It was explosion, clearly. And so he's just like, I covered our tracks and then some.
Yes.
I'm ensuring this victory because you think you went this far? No. I'm the top dog here. I'm gonna be the closer on this.
And I took out the Forger because he was loose end.
He was gonna die anyways. That was his whole logic. He's like, he was gonna die anyway. So
now we're gonna win the war because the Romulans are in. And so it cuts back. That was pretty much the whole episode. It cuts back to Sisko in his private quarters, and the whole episode is meant to be a reflection on: do the ends justify the means? And it finishes with him. He's like, I don't know if I can live with myself. You know what? I think I can live with myself, and I'm okay with it. And then he deletes the captain's log.
Which is...
Boom. Now there's no record of it, and he's good. He's fully corrupt,
Yeah.
And that's kind of the...
Corrupt in his... Yeah. Like, sorry, keep going.
Well, it's greed, corruption. I mean, that's kind of the message. Once you start it consumes you,
Yeah, and so... a couple points I kind of wanted to make just as a high-level view. A big one is the fact that this log gets deleted, and it's his way of just kind of pouring himself out. Once again, goes into the writers. There's so much Shakespeare. Like, honestly, if you told me in high school that Shakespeare was going to be interesting to me, like To Be or Not to Be, all that other stuff, I'd have been like, okay, this was like my lit class. All I had to do is take my AP exam, do what I need to do, and just be done with it. I never thought I would really appreciate it. The writers do it in such a way so that it's like, the literary term is soliloquy, right? An individual is on a stage or a platform, and they're just talking to themselves in a way where they can just express their innermost feelings, and it's to the audience. So it's kind of a way of internal track your thinking. Normally in those plays, it's like really dumb. There's some observer in some bushes, and they're like talking out loud, and the captain's log was a perfect way of having this literary device come to life of, I'm making a captain's log.
Yeah.
I had to convince myself that this is okay.
Right.
And you see one of the best, and the reason why I bring that, the literary device like soliloquy, or literary theatrical device, whatever device you want to use it as. But the whole point is, the reason why I bring it up too, is Captain Sisko delivers some of the best one-liners as well as one of the best internal monologues spoken in all of Star Trek in this episode. especially when he's going about. So at some point, I can't remember, this is when he was getting the data rods, or maybe this is after when Quark said that, actually. When Quark was like, hey, every man has his price.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, because then he's like struggling because he's like, oh my gosh, I'm going what's on. But then he stops and thinks, because this whole episode starts with every single Friday they post this casualty list of the war.
Yep.
And it makes him just hate
Which he
Fridays.
feels like he started, or he did start, or something like that.
It's like this awful, morbid ritual where every single Friday he posts a list. There's always someone you find on there
that you know.
And it just destroys the morale, and you just have to keep going. And that list is not getting shorter.
No.
And it's just causing him to have this internal grief. And so during that scene, when Quark's like, every man has his price, he comes back and he's just like, just pouring his heart out, because he's like, I don't know what's right, what's wrong. But then he stops and just says, there are worlds out there struggling for freedom, struggling for justice, people dying for the beliefs of justice and all of this. And I'm here just trying to worry about the finer points of my morality. So he's now getting to this huge psychological conundrum of going, do the ends justify the mean here, where I'm struggling internally with all the decisions I've made, but I know for a fact that not only will the Romulans in this war help us win this war, or give us even a chance to win this war, but not only did I just morally corrupt myself, but I equally just sent hundreds of thousands of Romulans to their death who might not have already seen battle.
Correct, yeah.
Sorry, let me word that better. Who might not have been in battle.
Yeah, they may not have ever seen it. Yeah, for sure.
And it's just like, you see the soliloquy and you're like, oh my gosh, like, you just watch it. And so I sometimes put Star Trek on to go to bed.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, it's a calming thing. I've always done it. I've watched it from high school on. And I just say it's really helped me.
I can't watch that episode and go to bed.
That's my point. This episode comes on. I had to skip it because I'm like, I'm going to be so glued. I've probably seen this episode like 10 times.
Yeah.
But I'm just so glued to it because every single time I watch it, there's just such a finer point where I'm like, oh,
yeah,
so beautifully written. But Mark, you kind of feel the same way across this episode? Like, this was kind of a different moral episode.
It is, definitely. It's very much deeper.
Deeper.
Correct. Yeah. Self-introspective, that's the word.
Oh.
Introspective. And it really does make you think, do the ends justify the means? It makes me think of President Truman when he decided to drop the atomic bomb. He knew it was going to end the war, but he was going to kill a bunch of Japanese civilians, and all that blood will be on his hands.
Yeah.
And he had to deal with it for the rest of his life, But there is that saying, all is fair in love and war, right? But that doesn't include your self-morality, So very deep, very well-written episode.
It's just wild. And do you kind of see where this is where I get so hooked on Star Trek? It's like, at a surface level, someone's like, it's just them traveling in space. Like, no, like, there's so much more finer points here. And I couldn't have hit Star Trek at a more perfect time in my life because I did it in high school, where it was originally on Netflix, and then they, Paramount Plus came out, blah, blah. But my point is that it came at such a perfect time because I was struggling so much. I'm like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, I would like to be an engineer, and seeing, you see Chief Miles O'Brien, then you see Geordi LaForge, like these crazy big data, all these engineers coming about, but then you also see the morality and this moral compass. And just as a high schooler, it was such a fulfillment. I don't know. It's like you're trying to find yourself, sense of self, and there's no better way of like consuming some media and looking at this and going, there's a lot of deeper things here than just spaceships and, lasers and everything like that. There's so much more. And I will say, just a quick funny, story around it is I got so obsessed with Star Trek. And hopefully now you can see why I got so obsessed with Star Trek. But I got so obsessed with Star Trek in high school. I was actually taking a psychology class. It was AP Psychology. And I'll be honest, I wasn't paying attention the most in class. But they were talking about it, and I don't know how this topic got brought up, but they were talking about the Kardashians, like the family, Kim Kardashian, all them. And in a psychology class, that kind of makes sense. I can't remember what they were talking about, but they were talking about something about the Kardashians.
But your mind just went to Star Trek.
And my mind went to Star Trek, but I wasn't paying attention. And I got so unbelievably excited. So I went to my classmate, who's right next to me, Allie, super nice, very quiet. And I went over, I'm like, no way we're talking about Star Trek right now in class. And she goes, wait, what? I'm like, the Kardashians? She goes, do you know who they are? And I was like, are we talking about the same thing? And she just loudly goes, you don't know the Kardashians? And the teacher stopped the class and was like, Tony, come on.
You know who the Kardashians are.
You know who the Kardashians. And she's like, and I was like, I really don't. I'll be like, I don't know. I don't think I'm right here.
Yeah.
Because I got pumped because I thought we were talking about psychology. So I was like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah.
So then I even mentioned, I was like, are you talking about like Deep Space Nine, Kardashians, like the whole occupation of Bajor, all that fun stuff? Everyone was in the class was like, no, the Kardashians like on TV. And then they asked, well, what are they famous for? And that got a little, because we were in school, they couldn't, what they originally got. I mean, there's so much they got famous for, but there's one in everybody's head that like you really couldn't say during school. But it got into this huge thing where the teacher from that on, every other Friday, I had to come in with a news article.
Yeah.
Going on with pop culture. Because I was just so oblivious because I was so in. And then I tried to convince her that every other week to that, I would bring in a Star Trek episode where we talk about the morality and the philosophy of it.
Yeah.
She didn't bite. She would have. If I maybe I'll, you know what? I'll send this episode to my psychology teacher and see what she says. But sorry, long-winded story, but it was just so funny because I was just so obsessed with this. So Mark, I'm hoping you kind of feel the same way. Do you have kind of any kind of final remarks or anything on these episodes that you feel like you want to talk about more? Maybe some overarching things. We kind of talk about the Shakespeare stuff with William Shatner's acting, but then we talk about Syracuse with Benjamin Sisko. Is there anything overarching?
It's really funny having watched The Orville and then watching these because the first season of The Orville is very much like the original series of Star Trek. It's fun, it's whimsical. The next 2 seasons get a little bit more philosophical, more thoughtful, like Star Trek series do. So it's kind of cool to see the similarities between those. Oh, I did have this question. So I know all the departments have different colors. Their colors, yeah. But my question is, I noticed that Picard and Sisko have red, but Kirk is like gold, or it looks green, but I think that's just kind of how the visual, I think it's supposed to be gold, right?
Yeah. So the one you got in season 2 is also, that was a special. In season 1, you'll see the actual gold uniform. So it was a really big joke. This is a Star Trek history lesson here. In the original series, it went gold as command, then it was red as engineering and security, and then blue was sciences. So medical, physics, whatever.
Yeah.
So those are the 3. So it was always a huge joke that whenever you wore red, you were expendable. Because back in that episodes, they would have like these landing parties. And it was so funny because they're episodic, right? So, they go to this planet, they do whatever. But every single episode, someone in red would die. Because they're just some nobody. Like, it was always Kirk and like Spock or Uhura and Sulu or Chekhov and Bones and all these main characters with 2 randos who were wearing red. And every single time, the randos just died.
Yeah.
So it got into like this huge joke where like, oh, I'm wearing red, I'm going to die. Like, I'm expendable. So there's even a Star Trek shirt that said, like, I'm expendable. It's a red shirt. So that kind of got into a big joke. And I can't remember if this was like a tip the cap to them, but they switched it. In the Next Generation, they made red the most valuable. So now that was command. Gold was now engineering and security, and then blue still remained sciences.
Yeah.
And then that kind of moved forward from there.
Gotcha.
But so I don't know if it was like a tap to that, but I just think it was really funny that they switched it up because, it should be gold as command, but then they switched it to red.
Yeah.
This is also fun Star Trek fact. I know there's one individual who's worn every single color. And maybe I'll just let the listeners guess on who that is.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's honestly shocking, but there is one individual in all the entire series that wears all 3 colors. And I'm curious who they can pick it out.
Yeah.
And let me know.
Don't Google. Don't
Google. And like work it out. Because like you can kind of think back, oh, well, we have this and this and this.
Yeah.
But there's one for sure character that wears all 3 uniforms.
All right.
All 3 colors.
There you go.
But yeah, so Mark.
Last thing I want to say is I think if I had to choose, I think the Next Generation episode was my favorite.
Really?
The Inner Light. I think so.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. No, 100%.
And then, well, it really depends on what you're in the mood for. Like you said, if you're going to sleep, the original series is really good for that.
The only thing I will say about the original series is while you're sleeping, the sound mixing is so bad sometimes that when the red alert comes on, I wake up like, whoa.
That's fair.
It's but that's a sound thing. But yeah. I agree. It's
more whimsical, right? And then
it's more light. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you want to think, the other series are better. But maybe it's just because I like Sir Patrick Stewart a lot, but I did really like the Inner Light episode. So.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I think I put this to akin to The Office, which is like, I'll make my point really quick. So my reason why I say it's akin to The Office is, for example, I watched The Office in high school. In high school. Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's a funny show. But until you work a real job, it gets funnier.
Yeah.
So my point is that like when I watched this in high school, The Next Generation was my show. That was, I think, it was the best. Story LaForge, everything about it really did it. And Deep Space Nine was pretty solid. I respected it and I really liked it. And also, full disclosure, Deep Space Nine actually did relatively bad when it first released because it was series. So this war happens not over, it wasn't episodic anymore. These wars were happening over multiple episodes. So people were getting mad because if they missed one episode, they missed a huge chunk of the story because the stories were bleeding over. That's why I kind of mentioned it earlier that Deep Space Nine kind of had a little bit of a rough start.
Yeah.
Is because, one, Star Trek is these people on ships constantly moving. But now here we have a space station who's always stagnant.
They were used to the close-end episodic.
And now it's bleeding over. But, sorry, getting back to my point of just, I would have said The Next Generation. And then I would probably say now, if gun to my head, Deep Space Nine is one of my favorites. Enterprise grows on me from time to time, and I like those episodes. But for the most part, though, it really depends on what you're moved for. And I realize myself, as I get older, I'm appreciating more and more things out of it. Yeah. Where in high school, I don't think I would have really thought about the whole ethical dilemmas that were really going on and what was going on in Deep Space Nine. I mean, I appreciated them, but I never gave them a second thought.
Right.
Where now there's mornings where I sit in my car and I'm like,
which I'm sure there are some that are still very applicable to today, even though Deep Space Nine came out in the 90s, right?
Another fun fact, we were born, I'm triplet, so I say we, so people don't think I'm crazy. So myself and my two siblings were born during Voyager. During Voyager, it was either season 3 or season 4, first episode opener. And it was like, I can't remember the title, but it was exactly on our day. Like, my mom was in the hospital that released, which is like wild.
Meant to be.
So, Voyager and Deep Space Nine happened at the same time. They were filming at the same time. So, Deep Space Nine actually had an off. So, they did 6 months of Deep Space Nine and 6 months of Voyager. So, Deep Space Nine just ended and Voyager just started up. So, I was kind of kicking myself. I'm like, ugh. I was almost born during a Deep Space Nine episode.
I was born during Deep Space.
Yes, 100%. I could probably look it up exactly which one you were born. So, dang, Mark. Yeah. Geez, taking that from me. But yeah. But, Deep Space Nine was coming out when we were born. So, I'll be honest, this Star Trek knowledge has helped me out grow better connected with some of the nerds of older generations.
Oh, yeah.
For example, one of my high school, he was our anatomy teacher, Dr. Torrance. He's the dude. Loved him. He came up and we were talking about Star Trek and he's like, this didn't even come out when you were born. Like, and you're watching it. Yeah. And I just remember always going to his class. It was such a cool thing to have on. So I don't know. I think it's really cool. But yeah, Star Trek has been
around
for
forever.
a long time. Yeah.
It was the 60s before Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars came out, I think 78 was when the first one came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Star Trek was first. So, but Star Trek historically has done horrible in movies.
Yes.
And Star Wars has done really well on both movies and everything. Yeah. And so you really can't compare them. But yeah, no, timelines-wise, though, Star Trek did come first.
Yep.
So, but yeah, Mark, it brings me so much joy that you watch these.
Yeah, and I actually liked them. Yeah. A lot better than I thought. I thought I was going to...
Thought it was just a homework assignment?
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to like any of them. But I did. I did really like all 3 episodes.
If someone stops and thinks, they go, oh my gosh, like, I really like Star Trek, but I don't want to do the time commitment, I could filter down that list real easy. Yeah. Like, if you were thinking about you just wanted to see a lot of Star Trek episodes, or you like The Next Generation, but you only want to see maybe 5 more episodes, see if you can really get hooked on it, I could hook you up with that 5 episodes real quick and simple. So that also goes for Mark, but also the listeners. Like, I absolutely love this. I love distilling down this information. Any way to get you into the gateway that is Star Trek, let me know.
I'm sure you've got plenty. But listeners, if you have a top 3 too that you want me to check out, let me know. I will watch and review those as well. So
yeah, and I will debate you in the comment. No, I won't debate, but I would love to hear what you think because there are a lot. This is just my top 3 that I thought off the top of my head. So, Mark, any last points? Anything else we didn't touch on? Forever Speak Now, Forever Hold Your Peace?
No, like I said, I liked all 3. And if I had to rank, I think Interlight's my favorite, then In Pale Moonlight, and then I think The Trouble with Tribbles.
I was about to come over to this table.
Is last.
Yeah, I was about to come over to this table if you put it in the Pale Moonlight.
No, it's just because the other 2 just made you think so much. And I didn't dislike The Trouble with Tribbles. It was so different than the other 2. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It just didn't hold the same
caliber.
To put them on. Yeah. So other than that, though, no, I think that was great, and it was a new experience for me. The movies are great with Chris Pine, but they're a lot different. It's a lot more action. It's a lot more.
It's Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. So it's if you think you know Star Trek based from the movies, you don't know Star Trek.
Yeah, you can gain a little bit of appreciation, but yeah. And also, I would say they did a lot of tips and tricks. Maybe we can go into that for a podcast episode, too, where they actually switched it. So it's not just a repeat of the old movies. Because you've never seen the old ones, right?
No, just the new ones.
Okay, yeah, because those are all based on... Yeah. Well, at least the second one is, but yeah.
Yeah, so... But that's all I got. Yeah, that was great.
No, Mark, I totally appreciate it. And, take us away.
So, yeah, that is a wrap. Thank you for listening. Please reach out to us with any questions, mix-ups, and what-if ideas.
Yeah, and also if you guys want, we'd love to have any comments, questions, everything like that. So if you do have any of those, please direct yourself to your social medias, which is Instagram or X, Twitter, and that's at Live Laugh Lore Pod. That's Live Laugh Lore Pod, P-O-D. Or you can email us at livelaughLorePod@gmail.com. Once again, livelaughLorePod@gmail.com.
Yeah, and make sure to tell all your friends about it. Thanks, guys.